Welcome to Surf Strong Elite, Conversations for a Healthy Surf Community. I'm your host, Greg Finch. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that these episodes will either stream or be recorded live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So we encourage you to join in, ask questions, make comments. If you follow myself, Greg Finch, or Surf Strong Fit on any of those channels, you can participate in the conversation and ask questions. We encourage you to do so. It makes the episodes dynamic, interesting, and reach more of the surf community. This week's conversation is with Peter Park, owner of Platinum Fitness in Santa Barbara, California, and elite trainer for over 2 decades. Peter has trained the best of the best: Lance Armstrong, pro surfers Kelly Slater, Lakey Peterson, and Major League Baseball stars Giancarlo, Stanton, and Justin Verlander, just to name a few. His personal ultra endurance achievements include 3-time winner of the world's toughest triathlon, current record holder for the Catalina 50-mile ultra marathon, and numerous Hawaii Ironman Triathlons. We discuss his work ethic, how it helped make him successful, and why it's also what makes a balanced life difficult. How working with Lance Armstrong was like a PhD in aerobic endurance training. Peter lays out a plan to get you ready to get everything out of your next surf trip. Here's our conversation with Peter Park. Peter, thanks for taking the time and joining us on Surf Strong Elite here. I really appreciate you joining us today.
No, glad to be here. Yeah.
Cool. Did you have a good? We're recording the day after Thanksgiving. That's another thanks for right post holiday. Did you have a good day yesterday with the family?
I did. Everyone was up here. I mean, my family, and my wife is on call at the hospital. She's a nurse, but she didn't get called in, so it was a good day. Yeah, we went over to a client's house, and it was nice.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, nice. Day. Yeah. Oh my, you're just south. You live in Santa Barbara, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're just south of us. I live in Morro Bay, and
okay.
on the Central Coast, and yeah, the weather, of course. My wife's from upstate New York, and so we'll talk to the family on, around the holidays or whatever. And it's it's like this recurring thing. Like either they'll ask about the weather or they won't, and they'll look out the window. It's just like, okay.
Oh, today. Yesterday couldn't have been better. I mean, it was incredible.
So like we don't want to rub it in, but I try never to forget that. I remind myself every day if I'm having a crappy, just look out the window, go walk on the beach.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about like when you look back on your amazing success and even some of the standing records that you still have, like in the triathlon world and the ultra marathons. Can you think of 1 or 2 moments that just really stand out for you?
Yeah, easily. 2 would be, the first one would be the it's a long time ago now, 93 Hawaii Ironman. That was like, I think it was the first or second year I did it. And I actually got married like a couple weeks before the race. And I ended up, I trained really, very well for it. I mean, considering I had a wedding and, right before it. And I did really well. I think I won 8:40 or something, which is fast, and it was one of the top Americans. It was one of the, just after I got married, so it was one of those ones where I'm like, okay, everything. The only thing bad happened is I lost my wedding ring at the swim turnaround, so that was kind of a bummer. It fell off right at the turnaround, so it's still out there somewhere. But yeah, that was one for sure. I mean, just because it was Hawaii, and that's kind of like the Wimbledon of the triathlon world, and you kind of have to prove yourself there to kind of get any kind of credibility. And then for sure, the second one was the Catalina 50-mile race. It's funny, again, that was 2 weeks after my second son was born. So I don't know why these things, I tend to have my best performances after a big, personal something. But that one, I did. I remember going out on that race, and I knew. I mean, like, it was like an out of body experience. It was like, wow, I don't know how this is happening, but at the turnaround, I had like a 15-minute lead already on all the lead, and I'm like, okay, what, something's going on here, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew I felt good the week before. But that's the one I broke the record, and I still hold that record to this day. And it's one of those like, well, wow, how did that? Everything just kind of came together like a flow state, just perfect race, and I don't, I look back at all my training lines and go, okay, what did I do? What was, but you can't, there's so many variables. I don't know what it could have been,
If
my son being born, just whatever. It was just one of those races where it was just like, okay,
if
that's
you knew
that's
the
probably the
answer
one
to
I look
that,
back on. No,
if
I
you knew
know
the
it'd be
answer to that, you would, I mean,
no, I know.
you would be other level, which you
Yeah,
already
so it's
are.
funny. I still look back every year to see if anyone's broken the record. I'm sure it's going to be broken. Of course, some young guy's going to come, especially since ultra running's gotten to be such a big sport now. Uh, I mean, it's like 5 times bigger than when I did it. So it's, there's going to be these young kids that can run 2:15 marathons. They're going to go do that race, and I'll get beaten for sure. But because
And
I was just a triathlete, doing
were you
endurance,
training for
ultras.
your triathlons between
No, at
doing
that
these ultra
time,
marathons? Yeah.
at that time, I'd already. I mean, I still dabbled in triathlon a little bit, but when I had 2 young kids, and you can't train for it, it's just
Yeah.
not, you know, you can't do the both. And I just, chose to, like, okay, I still need a competitive outlet. So I was good at endurance running. So I chose to kind of focus on that when my kids were young, so I could spend some, time with the family. Otherwise, training for an Ironman is that kind of, especially at the level I was at, it was like, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I
impossible.
mean,
I mean,
you're
you
either
can do
actually
both, but it's
training
not.
or you're recovering or
Yeah, and
you're
then you're
planning what
always
you're going to
worrying
train.
about it, and you can't come home from a 5-hour bike ride and have to take the kids to whatever. You just be a basket case. So I learned that
Well,
quick.
we'll talk a little bit about that mental piece because I'm going to ask you about some of the training that you did at that
Right?
time, but talk
Yes.
about that mental focus and how to you almost just touched on it. You have 2 young kids. How are you able to keep that focus on what you need to keep that edge and keep competing, and then almost, I don't know if the proper way to think about it is to disengage from that so you can be a little broader and be present with your
Yes.
kids? Like how are
Yeah.
you
For
able to do that?
me, that's a tough one. I mean, I haven't really competed like, like the full on, like I'm gonna win. I mean, I dabble. I mean, I pick things like I'll do Leadville mountain bike race or something
Yeah.
every year, something that I'm interested in. But I couldn't. I'm too one. Once I get into the training, it's like everything else goes out the door. I just can't. I had a hard time. Like, yeah, I'm all or none. It's like if I can't put it all on the line, I really just want to do it for fun and just concentrate on whatever I'm trying to do. And that was the same with my career. Once my career kind of took off, I couldn't compete like I used to. It's just you can't put in the energy to both.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad I got all my competing done when I was that age.
Mhm.
When I was young, when I didn't have kids, and it'd be hard now to try. Even I always try to get people to do, like, even I have older guys that are in their 60s or 50s doing Ironman. Like, okay, it's fine to do one, put it on your bucket list, but doing it, year in and year out. If you have kids in a big business, it's tough. So
Yeah.
it's finding that
'Cause-
balance is tough, especially
and
in
something
endurance
on
sports. It
that
takes a lot
level,
of
you
time.
can't really have a balance. Like
No,
it
I
really
couldn't.
is.
I
Yeah.
didn't. No, no. Yeah, ask my wife. No, there was no balance there. It was like I just put everything into that, and that was my life for then. But I had to be smart, which it was a tough transition to retire, and I've been through that with a lot with Lance and with Derek Fisher, a lot of the athletes I trained. That it's tough to go from racing, and it's your whole identity, and then going into like normal life. It's a it's tough. But luckily I had training, you know, training people, and it was very easy transition for me because I just kind of lived vicariously through all my athletes, and it was super easy for me. I went from like, okay, I want to be the best at triathlon to, okay, I want to be the best trainer in the world or whatever it was. I just went.
Yeah.
It was a different competition, but it fulfilled me just like racing did, or it
Yeah, and
still
then
does.
also, yeah, and a collaboration, which seems, I mean, you would have to have support to be training at the level you were doing and competing at the level, but ultimately, it's a solo pursuit, right? It's you and your
Yes.
mind competing at this point, and then you transition to this full on training time, and you are collaborating with this person and bringing them to this point. Not only are you pulling from your experience you have, but you're also training people at a very elite level in all these various sports. Yeah, I could see how that could still feed you that way,
It
and that
did
transition is
completely.
tough. Yeah.
It is, but I was lucky. I had kind of like the perfect pedigree for being a trainer. I started out surfing, then I went uh, to volleyball. I played volleyball in college and quickly discovered I was too small. So I turned to then after volleyball, I got in this really big kind of powerlifting strength phase where for like 2 years I just was, I worked in high school. I worked in a gym, one of the best powerlifting gyms in the world in Santa Barbara. I mean, all the big top guys went there. I was like 13 and I worked there. And so I got just a education just in working in there and watching and seeing what they do. And I was always curious about rep schemes and how they did it. And I learned a ton from there, which a lot of people who are athletes and turn to trainers don't get that. They have the aerobic part down, all the endurance stuff, but the strength stuff I really understood well just from watching this my whole when I was working. And then I went through the phase where I was 200 pounds at one time and I could squat the roof. And I just, so I was really lucky I went through that phase because I learned a ton about the gym and strength and how they did it and the East German methods and the Russian methods. And, I was always a student of that stuff. And then I turned to triathlons and got the endurance stuff. And then, of course I worked with Lance and got to see his whole program. So I had this kind of perfect pedigree of training and it was like, it just was meant to be, where a lot of people have little pieces of it, but I kind of had all of it. And I think that's why I got to train a lot of different athletes because I just wasn't like a one trick pony. It wasn't like I could just train endurance athletes. I could mean basketball, baseball. I just learned all about the power stuff. And, so it just happened. Organically, I didn't plan it. It was just the way it happened. And then my
So
education, I went to UCLA and had a kinesiology major. So I learned all the background of the body and physiology. And so motor learning, all that stuff. So I didn't plan it that way. It just kind of happened.
yeah, sometimes the best
And
things in life are that way, right? You come
yeah,
prepared to something and then are able to follow along that path and the opportunity
yeah, and
presents
I was
itself.
about to go to PT school at one point. I was ready to go, and then one of my clients I was training was just goes, "What are you doing? You're so good at this. Just, there's a," and he was a guy that I still train, 30 years later, and
Isn't that amazing?
and I was right. He was right. And as soon as I decided, okay, I'm not going to PT school. I just went in head first into training, and then that was it.
And when would that have been when you went full time into training?
94, 95,
Mhm.
right around there.
And and from that time, so across the board, but let's just talk about some of the elite athletes. So obviously you trained
Hmm.
some Major League Baseball players. So from
Yeah.
'94 to today, talk about the arc that has changed. Well, let's just talk about like the resistance and strength training component. Um,
Okay.
I would imagine there was much less focus within that, not just strength, but maybe more Well, I'll let you talk about it. Was it more? They
Okay.
were working more on skills and that aspect of it, and maybe not as much strength. What's the arc changed over that time?
In what sport? What sport are you talking
Major
about?
League
All
Baseball.
sports? Oh,
Let's just
baseball.
focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just say.
Well, I'll tell you how I got. So I was in Santa Barbara at the beginning training, uh, just general fitness people from triathlons and stuff. But then, I knew Lance a little bit from triathlon. Uh, so when his team would come into town when he was on the postal service and they'd train in Santa Barbara, and I just started working with him in the team a little bit in the gym. But then when Lance came back for his comeback, like in 2008, is when I started traveling with him, and doing all his off the bike stuff. And so from him, I owe a lot to him. He took me all around the world, and I went to LA, and he's the one that pretty much talked me into going to LA to work. And so he introduced me to a lot of people, uh, and one of them, Casey Wasserman, who I still am friends with and work with some. I started training all his athletes, basketball, baseball, and that's how that whole thing started. I went from like this, little, good, but not, not a well-known trainer in Santa Barbara to when I went to LA, that's kind of where I really sprouted out and like, okay, I'm going to take this chance and go for it. And, I wasn't happy just being, I wanted to grow and get better and better and work with different people.
Yeah.
So I got some of the, big time CEO guys, which I like the, the both. I like doing the athletes, but I also like, general fitness people that are just trying to, get in shape and, because you can change their whole world that way.
Yeah.
Athletes look for about this much change, where you
Yeah.
can take some CEO that has billions of dollars but has no health and change their whole life. So
Right.
I kind of like the mix. And that's where LA and I was there for about 12 years. I used to drive down there from Santa Barbara like 3 days a week.
Wow.
Week up for like 12 years until COVID hit. And then
Yeah.
COVID hit and I sold the gym I had down there, came up here and luckily, fate has it. Every kind of wealthy person moves up here. I mean, Santa Barbara became like this crazy mecca of the rich and famous. And so for me, it was, putting all that time in LA, I was pretty much the only name people knew up here. So I got lucky and had all these people up here. So I haven't had to go to LA since. And then
Oh,
I have a
and
bunch of
and for
athletes that come up and stay in Airbnbs, and so it's worked out. I mean, incredibly.
people that don't know that are listening, Santa Barbara to LA is not geographically far, but it
Oh
is.
yeah,
It
it
can
is.
be hours to get to where you need to get to
Oh yeah,
down
it
there.
depends on when you leave. I discovered I had that wired.
Yeah.
You left
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
4:30 in the morning, you were good. If you left at 5, you were screwed. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I did that, and that's how that kind of all how I got to be, you know, training with a lot of different kind of athletes back then. But that was about 2006 or seven, somewhere right in there.
And talk a little bit about so like within your day. So let's just say it's obviously
Hmm.
it's like a standard day. You're training multiple athletes and maybe a CEO and then a general fitness person's coming in. Are you having
Yeah,
to shift?
oh god, hell yeah. I'll tell you a typical, like on a typical day, like okay, I'm up. I have to get up at like 4:45. I have like a 5 a.m. My first three or four usually in the morning are people I worked with in LA that I still train on Zoom or whatever,
Yeah.
FaceTime. So I have a clients in Portugal, and then I got like a bunch of CEO guys in the mornings, and then right around 9:30, I have all the baseball guys. I go to the gym, my gym in Summerlin. I have a bunch of baseball guys come in, and different athletes, whoever comes in, usually from like 9:30 to 2ish. And then I usually have a couple of high school groups. I have like a nonprofit for high school kids where I train a bunch of kids that want to play in college, but I can't really afford it. And that's kind of my giving back hour, I call it, or a couple of hours. And then a couple more, it depends on, and then a couple more CU guys in the afternoon or athletes or, so it's a busy day, but it's not, like my wife says, you basically go hang out with your friends all day. So, which, I do, but it's, it can be stressful, but, designing and writing programs at night and for people that are gone, athletes, it's a lot of work. And, that's where, my work ethic from triathlon kind of spilled over to my thing, but a lot of times I have a hard time balancing that because I tend to be, a workaholic and just, go, go, go. And I've had to learn to find just even the last couple of years more, okay, I'm getting older now. I'm 57 now. I can't hold this kind of schedule anymore. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just whacked. But even though I enjoyed it, it comes to a point where, the energy pie isn't as big as it used to be.
Well, and a time pie. I mean,
Yeah.
not even the rest of your life, just within a day. Like you have a
Right.
segment, and you're looking for this. You call it balance, but it's just this space. And sometimes, especially when you're as good as what you do, and having that, just there's more and more people wanting that expertise from you. How do you balance that, and how do you
Yeah, it's
decide?
hard because I have a hard time saying no, to people. Like, I'll have these completely booked, and someone I really want to work with will call me, like some athlete or some big CEO guy that I admire. I'm like, fuck, and I'll somehow fit them in somehow, and that's it. But then, I screw myself. So it's a rough balance uh, to find. But just like when I was training, it's trying to find. I'm not great at it yet. I'm still working on it, but it's a work in progress. I'll put it that way.
So this is a nice little segue into like looking at your week. What does your week with this, allocation of time that you have that,
Right.
you have a lot. What is your week of movement and training look like?
Oh, okay. I'm still. I don't care how busy I am. I'll always carve. I'll find somewhere to work out. So I lift probably 4 days a week, 5 days a week sometimes. I have clients that I work out with, so I can, they like me to work out. So I'll pick a couple of clients. Okay, I'll lift with you Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then I teach a couple foundation type mobility classes at the gym. So I get a couple of days of hour and a half of that, and then I always get at least, if not more, at least an hour of cardio somewhere in the day. Like, so it's just fun, like I always tell my people that tell me they don't have time, I go, hey, look at my day. If you really want to do it, you're going to
Yeah.
find the time. If you don't, you won't, so I just find that, I find the time to do it. And whether it's putting it in, I'm lucky I can put it in. Like I have guys I train online that I just ride with we do, on their off day, they pay me a retainer, and 3 days a week, I just ride on the bike with them and do intervals. And I can work out just as hard as I want as they are, and they like
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I've been able to blend my own training with my clients' training, that's the only way it would work for me. There's days on the weekends where I go out on my own, and ride my bike and, and need my own space out there. But during the week, a lot of it, I'd say most of my training is with my clients. And I mean, if you saw what I did, you'd say you're crazy. You work out more than, 199.9% of the people, but it works for me. I've just kind of morphed that into my schedule, and they like me when I work out with them.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm still paying attention to them, but it's a way for me to get my training in at the same time as theirs.
And it probably increases the connection. It's this again
Oh, for
collaboration.
sure.
We're doing this thing
Yeah, and I
together.
think I think clients I think I walk the walk, so they like that I do that, and they see that I fit it in, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm always trying, different ways of eating or whatever, whatever. I'm always experimenting. I'm my biggest guinea pig, so I'm always trying, different philosophy. I kind of think, okay, that sounds, like it. I mean, my principles are always the same, but the little tweaks here and there, they're always like, oh, what are you up to this week? So it's
Yeah.
training. That's what's training so fun. It's always evolving as you learn more, and you know as you do it more, and experiment. And if I didn't do it myself, it would be very hard for me to teach, because
Yeah.
it's a feel
Yeah.
thing. I mean, you can have book smart, but unless you have the feel, like I can't put someone under a deadlift bar and tell them how to do it unless I've done it, because
Yeah.
you just don't have that same feel. And like you can say, okay, put it here, but if you haven't done it, you can just say, oh, okay, remember to push through your feet and do this or whatever, because you've done it and you kind of know what works, and little cues you use to help you, and you can just give that to your client. So I mean, I don't think anyone likes to exercise more than I do. It's not a job for me. It's like I wake up, I can't wait to do it. So to this day, so it's not like a obsession for me. I just like it. I enjoy it. It makes me feel
Yeah.
better, and I like being fit.
You're in
So
the right field.
it's
You found
yeah,
the
for
perfect
sure.
perfect fit for
Oh,
you.
for sure,
As you've
100%.
as you've gone through your career, and as you've gotten older, and some of the intensity of training you did when you were younger for the triathlons and the
Yeah,
ultra marathons, have you are you folks so we'll talk about foundation training for sure,
yeah,
but
right.
within your week, are you finding percentages of increasing of mobility work and recovery work and other ways to
Oh,
balance out
100%.
the alignment?
Oh my God, 100%. That's changed a lot for me. I decided, a couple of years ago, like, okay, I'm going more the longevity route than the performance route, and
Yeah.
they're kind of two different paths. Like, what's good for performance isn't always good for longevity. So I've cut a lot of my intensity down, in far as I'll do intervals once or twice a week, but it's not. And I've learned to go slow. I'll go slow. When I go slow, I go slow. And I've gotten really into meditation a lot. I do that every day. That's kind of my day. I do that daily, for about 30 minutes. Um, I try to rest. I try to get sleep. I don't, sleep's kind of like my, nemesis. I try to get, I need another hour. I get 6.5 to 7, but I'd like 8. There's just not enough time in the day to do it unless, like I start cutting out that 5 a.m. I could do that, but right now, my body's holding up well. I don't get injured rarely. Uh, I feel the energy's good, but definitely a lot more mobility work, a lot more meditation type stuff. And I've gotten into that kind of thing. I have a client, Joe Dispenza, who I work with. He's a very big meditation guru kind of guy. And we've become super close friends. And I've gone to some of his seminars, and, he's helped me, a lot with that kind of stuff. It's been probably the biggest change in the last couple of years it's just kind of really helped me focus and get out of my head and realize how to change things. If you want to, it's up to you. So it's going to his things that's been one of the biggest changes in the last 2 years, how much that's helped me.
Do you think, looking back, the output, the movement, and the training and the triathlons was what was giving you that? I like to say, like my wife would say, you need to go surfing. The waves aren't good right now. Like, you just need to go paddle. And I just think of it as like, it's clearing out the carburetor, right? It's just
for sure.
And if you've included this part of meditation and mindfulness, that ability to balance those two, it's providing this here. And so maybe it doesn't have to be so intense and so much on this side to give you that clarity.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely.
Yeah.
So I just I just make it again, like, I finish my last client, I clean the gym a little bit, and then I have this little room in the gym. It's just like clockwork. I go in there and do my 30 minutes or whatever it is of meditation, and then go home and write my programs, and I'll see the kids and stuff, and then I'll do a little breathing, stretching, like before I go to bed. And that's kind of I don't have a morning routine. That was one of the questions you sent me. I have a night routine. It's like the morning, I'm not getting up at 3 to do my meditation and stuff. So I have more of a night routine. I mean, and my wife laughs because she goes, "Come hell or high water, you do that. It doesn't matter what time it is." I'm like, okay, I'm not, because I know if I stop doing it once or twice, it'll just get easier to stop doing it. So I just, at the end of the day, at the gym, it's easier for me to do before I go home, the meditation part of it.
That almost is where you see the discipline that made you successful as a professional triathlete transition into and translate into these other spaces.
I mean, 100%. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, that's the triathlon and all that taught me work ethic and how to, I've never really had a problem with work ethic though, even for a long time. Mine is like not the work. It's like going overboard with all that stuff. It's not. It's doing too much. It's not. I have that. I just have that driven personality, type A. That all. If it's 11 at night and I haven't done my workout, I'll do it. It doesn't matter. So for me, it's more important for me to learn how to cut back than it is to be more, driven. That's for sure.
I could see. I mean, meditation is so powerful for everybody, but in that scope right there, you have to stop. Right, you have to stop and slow, and this is what. I meditate as well, and I'm not as diligent about it. But where I find is when I can't surf for whatever reason, surf's bad, wind, whatever it is. If I don't have surfing, I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm spinning. Because surfing is present.
Weird how that, exactly. It's kind of weird how the whole thing happened. I mean, like, it was right before COVID. I was in LA and I was training 1 million people. I was kind of a little bit out of control. And then the same week, I met Joe, and the same week, this company called Headspace, which they're a meditation app, I started training both their CEOs at the exact same week. I'm like, okay, there's something in the universe is telling me. And so I kind of listened to it, and I really listened to them. And that's when it all started. That's when, I was like, okay, in the same week, in the same time, I was like, okay, this is like, something's telling me I need to do this. So
I need to listen to this.
Oh yeah. And it's helped. It's, between both of them, it's helped a ton.
If you look back on your career and different places and influences, could you look and kind of pick out like what your most important professional mentor was?
Oh yeah, that's easy. I'd say there's two. Aerobically, I'd have to say it's Lance and all the people that he worked with, all the trainer or the physiologists, whoever. Just watching that program for all the years I did, I was like a PhD in aerobic training. Just
Yeah.
all how they did it, the intervals, the watts per kilogram, all that stuff. It's like
Yeah.
I literally got a PhD in endurance sports. And then I have to say the second would probably be Pavel, the kettlebell uh,
Mhm.
teacher. He's the Russian guy. I mean,
Yeah.
his last name is like I'll butcher it if I say it. It starts with a T. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But everyone knows him as Pavel. So
Yeah.
I met him. I went to one of his seminars when I was really young, and then I reached out to him just about something with Lance, and he ended up emailing me back, and we met. And we've become super close friends ever since. And his strength stuff is just, I mean, he's very scientific oriented and very simple. It's all about
Yeah.
you don't have to make it cute and complex. It's just do the basics really well, and I mean that it's changed my whole that his stuff is really, in the ability to talk to him and run by stuff with him. And he wanted to learn about aerobic stuff, so we've kind of just
Yeah.
become this back and forth with different things, and I feel very honored to be able to have the inside scoop with him and learn all about the Russian training, what they did in the in those 80s when they won all those. And their methods are just simple, and they last a long time. That's what I really realize is their athletes. Their power lifters will go 5 Olympics, 4 Olympics, where the Americans would go like one. It's just because they don't train to failure. They train smart and look more at the long haul than they do at one and done. And so just that opened my eyes to a lot about because when I first started training, it was just okay, I just want to destroy everybody. Whether it was in the gym or if they weren't like crawling out of the gym, I didn't think I did my job. Which, at first, I was young and stupid and just thought everyone should train like I did. And, what do you mean you can't run an Ironman? You're only 30. Like, so you just learn, I learned, I'm older now. I've learned a ton doing, making tons of mistakes.
When you look at building programs, and it's almost on that idea, and I with my clients, I struggle with this. Certainly, when I had my studio and I was training more general fitness clients, I struggled with
Mm-hmm.
this, which is you are those foundational things, call it boring for lack of a better term, done
Right.
consistently and done well is it's what it's all about to build that
Yeah.
foundation for people that don't have that. And this struggle of giving them enough variety to keep them engaged so they're not bored,
Mm-hmm.
but have them
Yep.
showing up every day to do those foundational things. How do you
Yeah.
translate that to a general fitness client? But then how do you translate that's still important to a really elite athlete of maybe, let's stick with the general fitness because we have this,
Yeah.
social media influence where we're seeing these people do these things. And every time I see that, I think, that person does not train like
No.
that. There's no
No.
way that person can
No.
train like that.
No. I mean, I mean, I probably have 10 exercises, not that many exercises, if they do everything
Yeah.
well. I mean, I think it all comes down. I try to teach my younger trainers is that it's, if they kind of feed off my intensity, like if I'm like excited about it, okay, hey, here, do you want results or do you want cute? What do you want? Like, I mean, if you came here to do, curls on a Bosu ball doing a, pop up, it's not happening with me. Like, it's like, I'm not going to do that. It's not what works. I mean, if you want to like squat right and learn how to deadlift and do pull up and just get strong and stable and so you can do your thing what you really want to do, like that's what's going to work. I'm not, I can make it look cute if you want, but it's just a workout. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
training. It's just you're just
It's just
going
a
through random
distraction.
workouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they I mean, I have a good enough reputation now where they don't really question me that much anymore when I
Yeah.
do it. But if I show, when you show them the technique and how hard it is to do it right, and the little nuances of a basic kettlebell swing, for example. I mean, people butcher that exercise, and then when they do it right, they're just like, oh, okay, I get it now. You know,
Yeah.
it's all about tensioning your body and learning how to link it all together, and it's not just take the bell and throw it up in the air. So I think just my attention to detail really helps people get it, and I think the results they get, they see, a girl or a woman can do 5 pull-ups, that couldn't even hang on the bar, 4 months earlier. They just go, oh, I have, 60-year-old women, deadlifting, 185 pounds. It's like, you can do it if it's safe, if you build up to it. You're not going to just start there, but you guys are strong. You can, and they feel empowered once they get that strength, and
Yeah.
they go, oh, wow, yeah, you could go do these little Barbie exercises, but it's not really going to help you much.
Yeah.
But if a woman can do 10 perfect push-ups and like some pull-ups, and they're not getting bigger, they're just stronger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's the trainer's job, my job to, like, if I'm excited and really have their program set out, and they see like there's results and there's a training, there's a purpose to the workout, and I haven't had any problem with boredom at all.
Yeah. And isn't it so fun when you do get that buy-in? Like I think of this one client that I have, and he's 70, and
Uh-huh.
maybe about 2 years ago, I started introducing kettlebell swing. I started
Mhm.
introducing deadlift conceptual, and so
Mhm.
we'll do deadlift on a hex bar, and now I train him remotely, and now it's
Mhm.
almost 90% of the time that we have together is focused on just continuing to break down the deadlift form for him. And
Right.
he's solid on so many of the other things that we just do these nuances, and he's bought into it so much that it's so fun. It's so rewarding
Yeah.
because
I
you
know.
see this arc go, and it radiates out. He's a mountain biker and he's a surfer, and
Yeah.
it radiates out into all these other areas. And like I'll talk to a new client when they're starting, and they'll be like, if I said that to him, like, well, we're going to spend 90% of our time doing deadlift, they'd be like, forget it. But
Yeah, well, as you know, when you're teaching deadlifts or anything like that, I mean, you're always learning stuff. You're always getting it better. You're always, I mean, at the beginning they look like, wet noodles, and then, and you have to get. But then once they get the idea of tensioning their body and locking everything, it's a skill. It's hard.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not. It doesn't happen in a day. I mean, it can take 3 months sometimes for even
yeah,
pro athletes.
yeah,
There's you can walk in the gym and see really good lifters and really shitty ones, and
yeah,
sometimes the shitty ones are super strong, but they're gonna get hurt, and it's
yeah,
it's
yeah. It's not
it's beautiful
sustainable.
to see
Yeah,
a guy like get up to the bar, a high school kid, and lock in and go down, and their posture's all stacked up, and to watch that, that's what like really gets me excited when I see, okay, they got it now. They'll lose that skill forever. They'll never lose it.
yeah,
They'll go to college. They'll be able to go to any weight program they do and be completely safe.
yeah. And
So
that hip hinge, that movement that we forget, we just don't apply it in our day often enough to
no,
retain it
and
if we've ever had it.
some people have a really hard time getting that too. It's
Well,
surprising me,
there's I think there's fear in there too. They're thinking that maybe they've had back pain or they've had an injury,
Yeah,
and they're just so apprehensive of like that's I've been told that that's so dangerous, and it's just like peeling
right.
away the layers of this onion to
Yeah,
get to the core to them. But then when you get there, it's so rewarding because
yeah,
it
it is.
empowers them into this place of there's all of this movement that
Right.
you're able to do now in strength and
Yeah,
sustainable.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it's exciting. And then you go back, and then the same client or myself for that matter, you'll forget or you'll be distracted and you'll go to get into that move and you're like, "Okay, I do have to focus. I do have to be here."
yeah,
And again, it goes back to presence. Like everything else
right.
just goes away for a little bit.
Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, that's what makes our field so interesting, because it's always there's always stuff to work on. It's a big skill that
Yeah.
people, and I don't think enough people look at strength training as a skill, like, because it is. It's like, kettlebell snatch or any of those pressing, any of that stuff is you know, it's really hard to do correctly, you know, and bring
Yeah.
in the right muscles and, you know, keep out of extension. You know, it's just that's why it's constantly. I like the teaching part of it because it's you can always learn. I don't care how long you've been doing it. There's always stuff. Even when I do swings, I'll go, "Oh shit, I didn't think about this," and then
Yeah.
it changes the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that I mean, you can. I mean, I'm just a nerd with that stuff. It's just fun for
Yeah.
me to watch these people like just get you know enlightened to like how to do it right.
I do like that you touched on it just briefly as a passing thing where you were talking about building programs and everything. You said like, essentially have 10 exercises. And what's
Yeah,
liberating about that is it we come up with this a lot ourselves in maybe the fields that we're not as tuned into, but a client comes to you and it's like they're overwhelmed. It's information overload.
oh my
They're
god,
getting
you had no
all of
idea.
this sensory
Yeah.
input, and it's like, hey, no, all we're gonna do are these real basic
Right,
foundational things, and we're gonna
right.
nail the forms here. And it's they I can see it sometimes. They'll just be like, oh,
No,
okay, okay, all right.
yeah, no, because they watch the internet and they see just everyone's highlight reels of like the stupid exercises they probably do just for the internet. And
Right.
so that's the frustrating thing about the like Instagram and all that stuff. It's just like, oh my god, you know, this is like, you know, and half these trainers, I know most of them that post like, oh, I don't ever do that one. Just you know, it just looked cool for Instagram.
Yeah. It's getting eyes
So
and getting attention. And,
yeah,
I can't
right,
blame it for that because I have to do similar things. You want to help as many people as you
no,
can. And
yeah,
if they don't look at you at all, then it's like, well, you can't help them. But yeah, that's a
no,
balance like anything
yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah.
So I saw recently somewhere, I'm not sure where I read it, but you started rucking, I think. And
Ah, yeah,
talk a
that's
little bit
become my
about that.
new
Like what
little.
is that?
Uh, it's basically a specialized backpack, really, where you put weights in it, and it's more comfortable. I mean, it's not like just you take a backpack and throw dumbbells in there. It's not the same thing. It's a little, you know, this thing really it keeps you kind of in a good posture. It keeps your shoulders up and your kind of head back and your chin back. And you basically, I mean, I was just looking for, you know, something on the weekends. You know, I do something long every week, whether it's a 4 hour gravel bike ride or and my friend who wrote a book that, you know, it's one of the books I was going to recommend if you asked me about books. It's called, his name's Michael Easter. He wrote the book called The Comfort Crisis. And it's a book about, you know, how just Americans, basically kids, everyone has just gotten too comfortable and they don't do stuff that scares them. You know, anything that is uncomfortable and it's gotten with the phones and the internet, you know, like what, you know, whatever it is. And so the book's called Comfort Crisis. And I'm like, okay, I just was looking for something, you know, I still run, but I don't, you know, I was looking for something a little less. I don't want to go run 5 hours in the mountains anymore, really. So what I did, I put the backpack on and you go walk and it's incredible. It's hard. It's like doing walking lunges up a hill for like 2 hours. You know, it's a different feel when you have that backpack than just walking up. It's you know, it's very muscular. And for me, it's not like my heart rate got jacked up. I'm pretty fit aerobically, so it was more a muscular thing than it was like anaerobic or aerobic for me. But I just loved the feel of it. You know, just it was tough and different, and you're in the mountains. I have my dog with me, and it was just it's just something different that gave you know it was just something different to do. It was a little easier on my body than running.
Mhm.
So I just really kind of got in, and he actually sent me one because I'm like I wrote him like how you're so into this thing, like why do you do this all the time? And he goes, just try it and find out. And he sent me one, and I've done it ever since, and it's become a, you know, a staple in my program. I just like it.
Yeah.
It's something you can just put on and you go out in the mountains or outdoors, and it's tough, but it's not. You know, you think it would be harder. Like I didn't have any knee problems, or it's just like walking with a like I start with 30. I can't do 50 yet. I would die if I did 50 pounds. But it's just a different way of getting in shape, you know. And I mean, I really did it for like a lot of my CEO guys, general fitness people. Like, okay, that's something I could have them all get, and we could do it all on a. I could get 10 of them. We could all do it like on a Sunday. Because I was looking for something, you know, because running, you know, it's too. a lot of people can't run, and it's too,
Yeah.
bikes, people are all different levels. But this, you can just go, okay, we're going to go up. If we get up to the top before you, we'll just turn around and catch you on the way down.
Yeah.
So a lot of my, of course, they always say, whatever you're into, I know you're going to throw on us. So my clients have gotten kind of into it too. It's become like a little thing.
So now when you have your pack on and Opal's running ahead of you, she's looking back at you and going, "What's going on? Like, why are you going so
why are you
slow now?"
running? Yeah, and it's funny because I find myself starting to try to run. I'm like, no, it's because it does not feel good to run with that thing on. Trust me, it's not.
Well, there you go.
I try.
That's your force. That's your force structure. You can't keep
Yeah,
pushing it. You have to
no,
slow down.
no, it was good. I mean, it's something I mean, it would be even hard to walk just for a normal person just around the block.
Yeah.
It would just be it's just a little extra, but it keeps your posture way better than you think. You think it'd
Huh.
be the opposite, like it would kind of put you into
Yeah, like
like a
loading on your top
defaulted
torso.
posture.
Yeah.
No, it
Uh-huh.
makes you do this.
Because
Almost like you're
does
doing
the
like a
weight start to sit kind of lower,
yeah,
lower?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
So you're
nice, and
kind
I
of,
didn't
it's
feel.
kind of
Yeah, I
going.
had
Yeah.
zero back pain the whole time I did, and I mean, of course, shitty dumb me, I did like 4 hours my first day. You know, but when you take that thing off at the end, you just feel like you're floating, like you're gonna
You're just
fly up
gonna
in the
float
ocean.
away. Yeah.
That's what it feels like. But it's
So
fun.
you,
It's just something different. I was
yeah,
looking for something a little different to do, and
yeah.
I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
That sounds like I'm attracted to the idea of raising the intensity, but also slowing things down. So like
That's exactly what it was.
yeah, you've said
That's
this
exactly what
before,
it was.
like go slow to go fast. Talk a little bit about that, almost in this context, if you want.
Yeah. Well, the go slow to go fast was mainly for my endurance athletes that didn't know how to go easy on their easy days.
Uh-huh.
I learned from Lance, training with him. When he rode, like, my grandma could have rode with him. Like,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
why do you go so slow? Like, but
yeah,
that's, it's that staying out of that gray zone, I call it. Like, when you're doing the lower end, like, now they call it zone two. Now it's become this big giant thing where, we just called it aerobic training. Where, it's basically anything under like 75% of max, somewhere around there. So the whole idea is that's, if you stay in that zone, you learn to burn more fat for fuel, for one.
mhm,
You recover, so it's more of a polarized effect. Like if you recover on those easy days, when you do your hard stuff, it'll be much more effective.
yeah,
Where most people, a lot of my, especially the CEO guys, would go in, before I worked with them, and they just go do that gray zone training where it was like kind of hard, but kind of not, just the
yeah,
same pace, the same intensity over and over and over and over. So I was like, okay, go slow, and then you can go fast on your intervals, and you're going to get a much better, training effect than
yeah,
if you just go in and do that gray zone 80% effort all the time, where you're not
yeah,
going to go anywhere. And that's what I tell like women that go to, okay, I'm going to go to spinning class 6 days a week. Okay, yeah, that's no wonder you're fat. I mean, you're just burning sugar the whole time. You're
right.
never teaching your body. You're never recovering. You're always kind of in a state of, overtraining a little bit when these people get into these classes, CrossFit, whatever. I have nothing against any of those classes if you do it in the right doses. But if you go 5 days a week to anything with that kind of intensity, there's no way to recover from that, and you're not
Yeah,
going to go anywhere. So at the whole go slow to go fast, it's like, okay, go slow and enjoy your easy days, and then once or twice a week, you'll have the energy to really push those hard days, which will push your fitness both ways. You'll get the aerobic, you know, zone down, and you'll get that high end. And I'm like, I had a guy during it was a typical CEO guy that just went, you know, that gray zone. And I tested him at the beginning. He could only hold like 50 watts at his heart at the low heart rate, like literally 50. And he thought he was fit. And I'm like, dude, you're like a cardiac cripple. Like, what are you like?
yeah,
This is so. I said, okay, I don't care how slow you're going, just stay in the zone. Like, and now it's a year and a half, 2 years later, he holds like almost 200 watts at
wow.
that same heart rate. That's
And as
efficiency.
Yeah, and as a reference for people for wattage output, um, could you give an example of like what Lance would be at some of his peak training, like what his watt output?
Yeah, that's Well, Lance could probably hold 350 watts at his aerobic pace, like somewhere in 300 at least, maybe higher for sure. And then I've seen him hold 450 watts for a half an hour, which is,
It's
I mean, that's just, if you just had an engine, right now, like for instance, me, I look at that zone two, like I'm about 240 watts, 250 watts. And I always want to, that's really good for me.
yeah,
I mean, I can hold, 250 watts at 118 heart rate.
yeah,
My max is pretty low. It's only 160, so 158. So that's, where if you can hold, that zone two kind of power is super important, almost more important to me than your high end.
yeah,
Because if you're super efficient aerobically, then everything else is going to be better.
yeah,
You're going to recover faster. You're going to feel better. You're just, your longevity, everything's better.
yeah,
And, that was another one of the questions you asked me is like, uh, what do I do differently with athletes that a lot of people don't agree with? And
yeah,
in the baseball world, that's definitely it.
yeah,
I make all these guys do, like, okay, if you guys play 172 games a year, if you have a aerobic system that's super well developed and fit, you're going to recover way faster than your other guys. So, we do a lot of nose breathing and, low end cardio with the baseball guys. They just go in and they come in on their off days and do like an hour of like, 130 heart rate. And, they all thank me for it because they're like, damn, I can't believe how much that made a difference in
yeah.
everything. So that's
It's a
kind of,
huge,
a
yeah,
lot
it's
of
a huge
trainers
missing
don't do that.
piece. Yeah,
Yeah,
that I mean, just
lot of power sport people would totally disagree with me, but I've had good success with all my guys with that. And so I think that's just coming from an endurance background and knowing the science behind it. That, people, oh, they only run, 2 feet or 30 feet to the base. That's all they have to do. Yeah, but they're playing a hunt. They're standing on their feet and
yeah,
they're traveling and they're going 100, never stopping for, never. They don't even have a day off, basically, maybe once a week.
yeah. When you
So,
break down their schedules, that's the part that's crazy for a major league athlete is it's not just recovery day to day, it's the longevity to be able to maintain
for
that
sure.
recovery over I don't know what 9 months is their season and they're playing
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 days a week. If they're an everyday player, they're playing almost every day of the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. And I was always surprised, when if a new guy would come that's kind of established, and I test their, some of them would be like, I mean, and like doing nothing, like a little sled push and some kettlebell swings would bring them up to like 190 heart rate. And it would take 2 minutes to get below 170. I'm like, dude, you are, like, your cardio system is like, you're not doing yourself a favor here. And so it's my job just to show them like, okay, here's why. And, they have to know, most of the smart guys need, like, why am I doing this? I'm like, because
Yeah.
like, just do it and trust me and, see how much better you feel, in the long haul. Like you pitch 8 innings, you're going to recover a lot faster if your aerobic system is built. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you're just going to have that edge on other
Yeah.
people. And it's, I mean, most of these guys, it's like, that's all they do. It's like, it's your job to be in shape. Like, what do you want to do? You're going to, you have all day to do nothing. I mean, make them up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a no brainer.
Yeah. It's
So
filling that
that's
time.
definitely
That
one.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely the one thing that a lot of people would agree with me with that I push like very adamantly.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about like your professional mentors and stuff. Is there one or two influential people just in your life in general, not in the professional world, that you can kind of look at and that have impacted your life?
There's there's I mean there's countless. I mean
That's
all my
why I
clients.
narrowed it down to one to
I
two because
mean it's yeah. I mean all my clients. I mean I train some really smart people, some billionaire guys that they're not there because they're dumb shits.
yeah.
They're all. I learned so much from just hearing their conversations on the phone. I'm not going to name names, but like some of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
guys like are some of the biggest names in the business world. I'm like, and I hear their conversation. I get to hear. I have a bird's eye view of what they do and how they do it. And some of these guys say, I see them more than their wives do. I'm like 4 or 5 days a week. An hour like one-on-one time.
Yeah. Focused.
Uh,
Yeah.
but definitely, one or two. It'd have to be my wife and kids. For sure. My wife. Without her, I would. I mean, she balances me. She does everything I don't do. I'm a horrible businessman, and she's an excellent business person. And so she, rides me on that part, and she does everything I'm bad at. Buying, doing real estate, whatever it is. Getting our money in the right places, and without, she just lets I just work basically. She does pretty much everything else. And then my kids, of course, have taught me, like, okay, there's way more important things than racing and training. They brought me to like, okay, until I had them, the world really didn't make sense. It was like, okay, now I see. I mean, I would skip a workout in an instant to watch my son's baseball game, or whatever. It's just, it makes it
Right.
bigger than anything, that having the kids, and, it's like, oh, wow, this is, bigger than anything I could ever imagine. So it'd have to be those two for sure, because without if I didn't have the kids, I'd probably just be training myself into oblivion. So
Yeah.
they've given me balance, and I hate that word, but they've just made me like realize that there's a lot more to life than training,
Yeah. It's like the
or
ability to
training
step
myself,
back.
or training
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
you
like the
just,
ability to
it's
step
just,
back.
it's not
Yeah.
even an option. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you care about them so much that you'll just do anything to make it right.
I think back when my daughter was younger, she's 14 now, and there would be a couple instances where, whatever part of your ego, I'm pretty
Yeah.
balanced. I don't have a huge ego, I don't think, but
Right.
it's like the humility that comes from being a father is you'll be in something, you'll think you're
Oh,
doing something
yeah.
good, and they'll
Yeah.
just the truth just comes so
Yeah.
clearly,
Oh,
and it just
yeah.
cuts you
100%. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I asked this question of pretty much all my guests that kind of
Hmm.
work in the fitness profession,
Right.
and so with my clients, they're almost all 30 plus surfers,
Right.
and what's really common, of course, is that they've surfed since they were, pretty much their whole life, and so surfing
Hmm.
such a high level output activity that while not perfectly balanced, it really hits a lot of the marks to keep them fit and keep them
Yeah.
healthy and
Right.
keep
Right.
them able to surf. So what starts happening, of course, is they're getting into middle age and they have a
Hmm.
mortgage and they have all this stuff. So t- think of this scenario where this person has come into you to work with and they just
Okay.
booked a surf trip in 3 months.
That's happened
And
many times.
they haven't surfed in a year. They feel tight. They feel paddle weak. Even on a recent hike, they just had to stop and catch their breath for a couple times. Like,
Okay.
what would your program look like for them over the next 3 months to get them ready for this, intense Indonesian trip?
Okay. Yeah. First thing I do is look at their schedule. Okay, how much time can you put into this? Like,
Hmm.
what's without destroying your life? Like, in the next 3 months, how much time? I would have them write down, the whole week, what they could, how much time they can actually put it, and then I would just kind of triage what I thought would be. Obviously surfing, they got to surf.
Hmm.
That's what they're going to do. So I'd say, okay, up your volume of surfing. Try to get out there at least 2 or 3 times a week, just to paddle, because that's what you're going to be doing.
Hmm.
And then, depending on how much time they have, I go, okay, you got to build your aerobic system first. You got to go in, get on the bike, hike, just low end for the first month. Like, okay, we can worry about intensity maybe the second or third month, but the first month, just make a habit of getting out there and doing some sort of, get a heart rate monitor and just keep it low end and just build your system. And then, look at their strength, like, okay, surfing, you push ups, pull up, just some basic strength routine, not some fancy, like we're going to take them, an hour or two to do, because they have so many other things they have to do to get ready for this thing, surf
Hmm.
and aerobic stuff, that, like, okay, if you do push ups, maybe some pop ups and some pull ups and some squats, goblet squats, and some sort of hinge motion and a little bit of foundation stuff, you're done. I mean, that's all
Hmm.
you can really do, and
Yeah.
you'll be fine. I mean, I mean, it's just got to be consistency, but you got to look at their schedule and, like I said, triage. What, it depends on the person. Like,
Hmm.
okay, if some guy's retired, of course you can, you can train them almost like a pro athlete for 2 months before. But if they have a full time job, it's like, okay, you got to surf once a week, got to do strength maybe for 20 minutes, and then you got to get on the bike for 30 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
But you just have to kind of look at what they can do and then make the best of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's really like you could design an ideal, but if you have 25% of the time it takes to actually do that ideal, that's not ideal.
Yeah, and if it totally, like takes up their whole life and they're miserable, that's not going to work.
Right. Well, it's not
And
sustainable. Yeah.
yeah, no. So it's just looking at, you got to look at the person's like how they are too. Like how out of shape are they? Are they like starting from like ground zero? Or are they kind of fit? Or what's their personality? Are they type A? Are they going to do whatever you say? Or are you going to have to get them out there and like drag them out there, make them get a trainer to make them do it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot, as there's a lot of variables to it. But most of the people that go on those surf trips are pretty motivated to work out so they have fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is what as I trained over the years and now just train surfers, that is the one theme that runs through that's different is I don't have to define to them why they're doing this. They want to stay
Right.
in the ocean. They can't lose that in their life because it's not just their identity, it's what grounds them and
No.
focuses
Oh
them.
yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
so you just remind them, hey, this you're doing the okay, right, okay. And so the motivation comes right behind that. It's really not you don't have to pull them off the couch to do this because the idea of losing this activity in their life is so intense that yep, tell me what to do. And that as a
Yeah.
trainer, that is you. Well, I don't
Right.
have to tell you that that's
No,
just
for sure.
it's almost
Yeah.
impossible sometimes. You can't really motivate somebody.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about foundation training, and it's a topic that you could go so in depth in.
Right.
There's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
layers to that. So you and Dr. Eric Goodman developed
Yeah,
foundation training. I believe even start some of the origins of it were in your facility in
they were.
Santa Barbara. That's kind
100%.
of the
Yeah.
origins of it, and just talk a little bit about how that was developed and how you still utilize some of the movements and the foundations
Okay.
of that
Yeah, because
in
I do
your
a lot.
yeah. So
Uh,
let's just talk a little about it because it's amazing and it changes people's
yeah.
lives.
Yeah, Eric came to Santa Barbara, I don't know, it's been 2007, maybe, and he was just going around to the gyms and like going, "Hey, here I have this new, kind of method or whatever you call it, some sort." It was like very. It was not what it is today. It was a bunch of different little exercises. I mean, they're similar, but much more refined today. And then I just connected with Eric right away. Like, okay, I get this, you know. And so we just he took me through stuff, and then we just started working every day together, just going over the stuff and naming it and doing this. And I was much more established than him at that point, so I had Lance and a bunch of Jeff Bridges and a bunch of actors, and we just brought it out and decided to write a book and went to New York and got a publisher and kind of did the whole thing. So I mean, he pretty much had the ideas for all the exercises. I just wanted it to get out there, and I used it for. He was looking more for like more medical, like pain management stuff, and I was looking like, holy shit, this is the perfect way to teach athletes how to tension their bodies and
Right.
get in hinge positions and use their feet and think about where their lats are, where their chin is and their back is. It's like piano skills. I
Yeah.
that was my Eric was seeing it from a totally different view than I was. So that's what made it so powerful, I think, at the beginning, because I saw it like in a totally different way than he did. He was like, I
Yeah.
want to get people out of pain. I want to get people, and I was like, oh shit, this is the perfect way to teach my high school kids how to actually tension their bodies. And it
Yeah.
worked, because once you taught these people these things, putting them under a bar was just like, whoa, they already know how to do it.
Right.
They already know how to do all this stuff. And so, to this day, Eric and I still do videos together. We don't really, we're not in business together anymore, but we still do, we'll come together and just do, we talk all the time and do little different 12-minute videos and stuff like that. Because I wasn't interested in doing the certs and all that stuff. I was, that wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And so Eric kind of took that and ran with Jesse and the other guys, and I just kind of went the, more the training route. And Eric and I are, still super close friends and do videos, and Jesse and I are close. I mean, there's no bad blood or anything. It's just I went a different direction, and they went to the cert route, and I just wasn't interested in that, in doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's the part that I have some exposure to foundation training, not in
Hmm.
depth, but as a
Right.
teaching tool, like you mentioned, and also the fact that I'll use some of the postures because of there's no movement. So hold this posture, and like you said, like
Yeah.
tune into this is your lat.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
this is your glute in contraction, and
Right.
identify these pieces and how they're working together. And then you're right.
Yeah.
Now let's
And
talk
teach.
about hinging
Yeah.
in a deadlift.
Right. Teach neutral spine, teach,
Yeah.
rib
Yep.
cage in a good position, your head and body stacked over
Yeah.
each other, all that stuff. I mean, it's nothing. I still do with all my we do, they, every one of my athletes knows how to do it. Every one of
Yeah.
them, it's a big part of their thing. They love it. They like doing
Yeah.
it. And,
Yeah.
it's not like I have to force them. They really see the benefit of it. So it's still probably one of the best tools I've found in the last, 15 years that really was like, oh God, this works.
Yeah.
This is something that is powerful.
Yeah. There's something invigorating about it because you are
Yeah.
you're breathing and you're focused, and it's not easy. You're looking
No.
at somebody
No.
doing it, they haven't done it before, and you're like, well, you're just standing there. It's like,
No.
no, you're
No.
you're
No.
you're engaged, and you have this moment, and so it's not tense, but you're
No.
engaging in this posture, and yeah, there's no escaping it. You're like the
No.
level of work
No.
you're doing.
Yeah. And you can always advance it too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no, it's
So
great.
you touched earlier a little bit on breath, like you had a couple clients, like
Hmm.
nasal
Yeah.
breathing.
Right. Yeah.
Has
Yeah.
has breath expanded in what you're teaching?
Yeah, for
Do you,
sure. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
back in even with the Pavel days, it's all the breathing, alligator breathing and the you know
mhm,
the power breath, and has always been good. I don't overdo the breath. I mean, with meditation, I know how to, I do it, but I try to make it simple. We do a lot of nasal breathing for the
mhm,
low end cardio stuff with the
mhm,
athletes because they like it and
mhm.
it works. But I don't make it. I don't go into. There's so many variables, and I try to make it very simple and not like they learn the breath and how to lift, and then they learn how to breath, how to nasal breathe, and I mean, that's pretty much the extent. I don't go too gnarly into the breathing part of it. Just
Yeah,
there's so many other variables in my clients like stuff that especially these, you know, CEO that you can't make it too complicated or
yeah,
they can't handle it. It's too much.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's all about results and keeping the
yeah,
pieces in there to keep it foundational and strong and effective, and then attainable. You
yeah,
can
for
raise what you're
sure.
expecting of them, but it's like it goes back to, we just touched on it earlier. You have 10 exercises, and these are the areas that we're focused on, and nail
Yeah,
these things down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's gonna be much better in the long haul. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So next week you have a day completely open. You don't train anybody. You don't have any responsibilities. This is a daydream,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah.
How do you choose to spend that day?
5 hour rack or a 5 hour gravel bike ride. One of the two. Just go out in the mountain. I mean, because I'm around people all day. I mean, I'm giving a lot to people all day. So just to get out in the mountains where I see no one and
Yeah.
is that's just for me. That's what I do on a day if I had nothing to do.
Hmm.
Because it's just
If,
you just clears your head and you're out in the out in the the wilderness or I'm lucky to live where I do where I can just disappear and not see a
yeah.
person
Yeah.
for hours.
Yeah. 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 We touch on that often. My wife and I, like, during the lockdowns during COVID, like,
Right.
we could always walk on the beach every day. That we could just go and
Hmm.
get, like, okay, we just go out and get out and just breathe, and
Yeah.
we appreciate that beyond words, and tried to do it almost every day, just for the fact that we
Right.
could do it. It felt like
Yeah.
honoring it. Like, let's go get on the
Hmm.
beach.
Yeah.
So if you looked, this is kind of a similar question to having the open day. If you weren't a trainer and income
Hmm.
wasn't really a concern, what would you want to do?
Yeah. I'd pick something crazy that, kill it Mount Everest or something that scared me that didn't really want to do. Something that I have to like, okay, that I don't know if I could do that type of thing. Something,
Mhm.
whether it's, Mount Everest or like some 200-mile gravel bike race or something that just scared me. I would want, just if I had no, never worry about money and I didn't have to train people and I could train for that, that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
Because
That
I like
drive.
those challenges of like, I don't, like doing Leadville on my single speed was the last one I did. Like, it's like, okay, I mean, it was crazy, but it was, I was scared. I didn't know if I could even do it. On the start, I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't even know if I can finish this thing.
I
But
had several. I had
that's the
several
type of thing I like.
clients. I had several clients. One was 65, and the other one at the time was 55, and they competed in Leadville, and we were training,
Yeah,
prepping them to get them ready.
yeah.
So for people listening, just define it. It doesn't have to be the exact dimensions,
Right.
but define what Leadville is, so they have a perspective of what that
It's
means to
at
do it on a
10,000
single
feet of
speed.
climbing. It starts at 10,000, goes up to 12 or 13, I think, and you're going over. It's like 10,000 feet of climbing too, of vertical gain, and it's tough because it's in that high of altitude, and I live at sea level, so it's like the people that live up there have an advantage, and I trained for it pretty vigorously, but I was scared of it. It was like, okay, I don't, a single speed at those last hills where you have one gear and you either walk or you deal with it, and so you know it was, and I would well, and it was great. It was a great accomplishment, and so something like that. I wouldn't do Leadville because I've already done that. Like now I'm like, okay, I did
Yeah.
that. I'm not going to go beat that horse over again. But there's something else that like a wrecking, like some crazy David Goggins type thing. I don't know, something that I don't. Okay, I don't know if I can. This sounds brutal. Like I don't know if I could do that.
It's that setting a goal that you don't think you can accomplish. Is
Yeah,
there's a driver there, right? If you
yeah,
look
for
back through
sure.
all those things, it's just like it's getting me
Yeah,
outside of my comfort zone,
yeah,
and in that
exactly.
place is where I discover what I'm looking
Yeah, it
for.
makes you feel like, okay, I'm alive. I can.
Yeah.
I'm not just doing the humdrum every day. What I do every day.
Yeah. That translates, and for everybody, that translates what you're describing, of course, because of your level of athleticism and what you can accomplish. But for everybody, define what that is. Try to find where your comfort zones are, and being slightly outside of that
Yep,
is
that's
exactly
what I
the
try to.
same, no
Yep.
matter where.
So I try to teach all my clients. Okay, let's first one. Let's train for a 5K on the ski erg. Just let's see where you are now. Let's set a time and a pace that we think you can hit, and let's work for it and go for it. That's the easy one. That first people, then you can just kind of expand once they do that, and then the people gives them a purpose to train. Like, okay, I'm actually doing this cardio for some reason in the future, that to reach a goal. So I think that's important for clients to have some sort of goal that kind of is hard for them.
Yeah, yeah. It's just pushing them in that place that's just steps, and then it expands not their world, but it expands what they can connect to be able to accomplish. Like if that far
Right.
goal just seems unreachable, it really is just outside of this. And then that's why you talk about some of those CEOs, and you talk about some of
Yeah.
these just like incredible athletes. They don't just appear there. They keep challenging themselves into these areas where like I can accomplish that piece, and then it just keeps growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Where
Yeah.
can our
That was great.
listeners find you online?
You can't. No. You can't. uh,
Where is your
I mean,
gym located?
I
And
love,
knock on the door.
my gym is in Summerlin, but the best way. I mean, I love if people ask me if people go on my Instagram. I think it's Platinum Fit SB. I think. I mean, I always
Yeah,
answer I like people to direct message me and I'll answer. I like that. It's not that's the way to get a hold of me. I mean, the best way,
yeah,
because I check that like at least every other day, and I don't. People like when I wrote my book, the rebound book. I mean, people would just text me and they couldn't believe that I actually wrote it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you asked me a question, why wouldn't I write you back? It was like Jesus called them back or something. You got like so dumb. Like, of course I'm going to text you back if you ask me. But people get the. I mean, it was weird. But yeah, I love to answer questions.
Thanks again to Peter Park for being part of the Surf Strong Elite podcast and being so gracious with his time and his expertise. Thanks for tuning into the Surf Strong Elite podcast. All of the topics that we touched on today will be in the show notes. You can find those show notes at surfstrongfit.com/podcast. Please like, subscribe, and comment on this episode and all of our social media channels so we can reach more surfers and help them stay strong in the ocean till their last breath. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.